So how about America's war effort during World War II? With heroic citizen soldiers who volunteered or were drafted into the American Army, the U.S. put together a formidable fighting force. There's no question on that. In fact, your unit kind of discusses one such example in Wesley Knotgrass. But we had, unprofessional soldiers who became professional quickly and did an amazing job. We also did an amazing job on the home front. Women and men not fighting formed an amazing workforce that generated many high-quality war goods for the military. Car factories, for example, became tank factories. The female World War II factory worker was symbolized by the government propaganda program Rosie the Riveter, and the women did an amazing job for us in the factories. And as far as the fighting, there were three major fronts that emerged for American forces. We had the European campaign, the Pacific campaign, and the North African campaign. First, the North African campaign, you had basically Italians and Germans fighting American and British forces. There were other countries involved to control North Africa. Now, North Africa is close to southern Italy, as you can see on the map on this slide. And it would give each side influence on the Mediterranean Sea region and also access to Central and or Eastern Europe. It would also give whoever wanted an area with a close proximity to more oil reserves in the Middle East. The top Axis commander was the German General Erwin Rommel, known as the Desert Fox. Very, very good, and his forces were very formidable in this not easy campaign. On the Allied side were commanders General Montgomery, known as Monty, from Britain, and General George Patton of the United States. Eventually, the Allies would win the area and use their control of North Africa to invade Italy, which was an important invasion, which was a major step in defeating the Axis powers. The European campaign included the big three allied nations of the United States, Britain, and the Soviet Union. There was basically two fronts. The Soviets fought the Germans in the east. Even though Hitler and Stalin had a non-aggression pact, Hitler violated that, which is kind of par for the course for him, by invading the Soviet Union in June of 1941. Most of the European campaign early in the war was fought in the east. Stalin was desperate for the British and Americans to open a Western front to help relieve the pressure he was feeling with his forces as the Germans were closing in on the capital, Moscow. General Eisenhower, the American commander of the European campaign, though, wanted first for North Africa to fall in our hands before he opened a Western front, possibly through occupied France. Now, turning points in the European campaign. First of all, the Battle of Stalingrad. Hitler's forces had marched relatively easy through the western part of the Soviet Union before coming to the city of Stalingrad in 1942. Now, capturing Stalingrad would most likely lead to the fall of the Russian capital of Moscow. The great Soviet resolve and help from the harsh Russian winter, very similar theme in history of Russian invasions, the Soviets ultimately defeated the Nazis. Over 1 million lives would be lost in that battle. It was crazy. Stalingrad was a turning point that led to a gradual retreat and occupation of Germany 2 years later. So seen really as kind of the turning point, major victory for the Allies, specifically the Soviets. And also you have to look at the D-Day invasion in the European campaign. Eisenhower's invasion of the Normandy coast finally happened in 1944 with North Africa in check, and after thousands of casualties, the Allies, made up of primarily American and British forces, retook France. By 1945, the Germans were surrounded now in Europe, and Stalin had his two-front war. Now on to the Pacific campaign. After the bombing of Pearl Harbor, the Japanese enjoyed 6 months of success in fighting the United States. We were really crippled from Pearl Harbor and just kind of trying to find our bearing and strategy in the region. But we got a strategy. We got a great commander in General Douglas MacArthur. His strategy was the island hopping campaign, in which the Allied forces would attempt to defeat the Japanese by capturing island by island in the Pacific until they were on the doorstep of Japan. The turning point in the Pacific campaign was after the 6-month dominance of Japan. MacArthur and the U.S. got a much-needed victory in the Battle of Midway, which is an island in the Pacific. And like Stalingrad in Europe, this would begin the successful retreat of island hopping over the next 3 years. The Battle of the Leyte Gulf was actually the largest or biggest single naval battle, and it occurred here in the Pacific. Now, MacArthur's one of his early defeats had been the Japanese successfully taking over the Philippines. And MacArthur makes a famous declaration as he's retreating from the Philippines that I shall return. And in late 1944, he certainly did. And this battle led to the successful invasion of the Philippines and the retaking of the islands from the Japanese. And like I said, this would become the largest naval battle of the entire war. Eventually, the Pacific campaign was successful as island hopping led to the Allies to the doorstep of Japan. And the next question would be, would the U.S. invade Japan? So as the war comes to the end, some of the major events in the last year or years of the war. First of all, the Battle of the Bulge was a last-gasp major offensive by the Germans in late 1944. Though it was initially successful, the Allies eventually would win, and that would lead to really the end of the Axis cause in Europe and overall in World War II. The end years are also known for some major war conferences. The big three leaders of the Allied nations, FDR in the U.S., Stalin in the Soviet Union, and Churchill in Britain, met in Yalta in February of 1945 to discuss the end of the war strategy and post-war issues. FDR dies in April of 1945, leaving the little-known Harry Truman as our new president. By the summer of 1945, Germany had surrendered. Truman, Stalin, and Clement Attlee, who will be the successor to Churchill as the British Prime Minister, meet at the conference in Potsdam to discuss the post-war Europe. Still at this point, the Japanese had not surrendered, and Truman at Potsdam vaguely reports to Stalin of a massive weapon that we possess. So Yalta, the big three, Potsdam, some new faces emerging as leaders of the Allied nations. Which brings us to the atomic bomb and the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The last task for the Allies was to defeat Japan, the last holdout on the Axis side. Though their allies, Germany and Italy, had surrendered, the Japanese were defiantly refusing to surrender. New President Truman had a difficult decision to make. An invasion of Japan came with an estimate of over 1 million casualties. And also the Soviets were not in good graces with the U.S. as they were not allowing nations they were occupying in Eastern Europe self-determination. They were trying to set up communist governments. So Truman makes the decision to use his new secret weapon, the atomic bomb. And in early August, he drops atomic bombs on 2 Japanese cities, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, creating massive destruction in those cities and really just opening the eyes of the world to this new powerful nuclear weapon. And after seeing the devastation, the Japanese did indeed surrender, and the war was officially over. So that's kind of a summary of the war and really, from the U.S. perspective and kind of some of the highlights of Unit 23.